Hi everyone, I am Punya Aggarwal, ACCA affiliate and one of the admins of Being ACCA. And in this video, I will be sharing some of the common mistakes that all audit and assurance students do. Some of the commonly made mistakes, I'll be discussing a list of them. So make sure that you watch this video till the end to see if you are also making the same mistake or not. So let's begin with the very first mistake is about your presentation. So in audit or in general in ACCA, presentation plays a major role, especially in audit because 70% paper of yours is written based, is descriptive based paper and it's not MCQs, and you have to write those 70 marks, right? And the examiner is going to check it. It is not the system which is going to check your paper, right? So presentation should be top notch in terms of your writing skills, how you are writing the answers. Writing means spelling errors plus the grammatical errors. So now, of course, the examiner won't be cutting your marks directly if you have made a spelling error in the paper, of course. But if you make a lot of spelling errors and lot of grammatical errors to the point that the examiner is not able to understand what you're trying to write or what you're trying to convey or what is the risk, then examiner will obviously cut marks. So it is better that we focus upon our spellings and grammatical errors and try to reduce them as much as we can, right? Now presentation also follows with headings. Now there are tutors, I know that, of course they tell you that headings should not be written because it's just like waste of time. But personally, to me, headings play a major role. For example, for example, I'm writing an audit risk, and the audit risk is about detection. Okay, detection risk, that the company is a new client and there is a detection risk. Now if I write number one, and if I start just blabbering and just explaining my point of view, and I also write that it is a detection risk over somewhere in the middle, okay, and there is another student who has written detection risk as the heading and then starts blabbering and then starts blabbering, okay. Now I, as a examiner who is checking the paper, I will be more convinced with this type of an audit risk, this type of a presentation than this type of a presentation. So my advice to all my students is, wherever you can, write the heading, especially in questions of audit risk, your internal controls, and your substantive procedures. Just like give a heading, not in the the statements that you're writing. Just write substantive procedures for revenue, substantive procedure for whatever, right? Just give it a heading. Similarly, audit risk, internal controls, these require a heading similar to this, right? Again, same on same lines. For example, you have written the heading as detection risk, right? Part number one, okay? Leave a line, you have left a line. Now, statement from the question should come which depicts that yes, this is a detection risk. This thing you can straight away copy and paste from the question. You don't have to put in a lot of your mind and effort into it. You just have to copy that single line from the question. Do not copy whole question, whole case study, of course, but just like one line from the question and you will be good to go. Then again, leave a space and then start your risk. Like, there is a risk, okay, and just start explaining that this is a detection risk. Now they are in audit in totality, like whatever topic you pick up, if it is audit risk, even if it is internal controls, if it is substantive procedures, if it is audit risk, audit report questions, every question requires you to answer three basic questions. So whenever you're writing the anything in audit, just keep in mind that are you answering these three questions or no through your risk. For example, I wrote this large risk. I'll just see if how is mentioned, what is mentioned, why is mentioned. Like, why is it a detection risk? If I am stating something, if I'm stating a fact that this is a detection risk, how is it a detection risk? Have I written that? Why will it be a detection risk? Have I written that? What will it be? It is a detection risk. I have already written that, right? So your presentation in terms of your writing, in terms of your formation of the statements, should be top notch, because that is the portion of the paper which the examiner is going to check. And the easier you make the life of the examiner, they will give you eventually the marks. As I said, like here, if somebody gives me this question, maybe I'll give like a 1, maybe. Okay, but similarly, if same this part is same over here, but the presentation is different, maybe I'll give like a half a mark extra, or maybe even 2. I don't know, depending upon the content also. Of course, content is the major king over here, but presentation also plays a major role over here, right? So presentation is also important. If your content is the king over here, your presentation will play as a soldier who is protecting your king, if you just take that as a simple example. So very simple. Then moving ahead with again, as I mentioned, that mentioning the reason, that another important very big mistake that my students did is not mentioning why. Why in terms of, especially in terms of substantive procedures. See, in substantive procedures, for example, I am writing discuss with management about for example, about the recent change in level of provisions made. Okay, I have just written this, right? Now discuss, as I mentioned, what, why, and how are the 3 questions which you have to answer, right? If I just write this, what I'm doing is I am discussing. Okay, verb is there. Fine. Perfect. One thing is sorted. Second thing is how. How am I discussing? I'm talking about the recent changes with the management for the previous provisions made. Okay, how I'm doing it is fine. But why am I doing it? You have to justify also. Now, why are you doing this? Also justifiable. So basically, just a minute, to assess the reasonableness, to see if it is reasonable also, not or not, right? If the provisions made are reasonable or not. Simple. So reason why is very, very important, which is another big mistake that my students did, and I hope that people are not doing it. So let's move ahead with next auditress. The next mistakes that students usually do. Third, not revising the IFRSs and the knowledge based questions. If you are familiar with audit, you know that IFRSs play a major role in your audit risk, in your internal controls, otherwise as well. When you're writing about auditor report as well, IFRS plays a major role, and you have to revise all of the standards, all of the IS and the IFRSs, which are very, very, very important, plus the knowledge base. These two are very easy marks. Okay, these are very easy marks to grab, and you should not skip them at any cost. Knowledge based questions, for example, prevention and detection of fraud and error, or like some questions which are always repeated, mostly repeated, and are not related to your case study. They are generic questions, right? So these are very important, very easy marks to grab. Again, now talking about one specific, a technical thing, let's talk about. Now in question, if you would have read, this is in relation to your topic, audit report, which is the last review and reporting topic. There is a difference between amendment required, okay, and opinion of auditor. Okay, so listen to me very, very carefully. In some questions, they will give you like a small case scenario, and they will ask you that if an amendment in the financial statement is required or no, right? That is the amendment. Now, in another type of a question, they will ask you the simple, that what will be the opinion of the auditor in if they're not amending or if they're not changing the financial statement, basically, right? Now, whenever we are talking about the opinion, you will be stating normal, your qualified opinion, unqualified opinion, pervasive, disclosive, whatever. Okay, all of those things that we usually write. But when we are talking about the amendment, you do not have to state all of these. You have to just state your IES 10 according to IES 10, right? You have to state that is it an adjusting event? or a non-adjusting event, and on this basis will an amendment be provided or no. Amendment basically means change in the financial statement. So there is a lot of difference between this and this. I hope you understood, and there are many students who get confused, and when amendment is asked they write about this thing, which is a complete, that's wrong basically. Okay, so I hope that you understood the difference between the two. Then talking about the next one is very, again, very, very important, linking, basically not linking to case study. See, the examiner is the person who is setting up the paper, who is setting up the questions, is not mad that he is giving you such lengthy case studies, 100 200 word case studies, to not have a, when he's not mad that he's giving you so much of lengthy case study and you're writing like generic answers, right? You have to relate your answers, especially your substantive procedures, to the case study. It is very, very, very important. Even your other things as well. He will specify you with a line that this is not, if the question is a knowledge based, he will specify with a note that the question is a generic one and is not relation to the case study. Please watch my AA September December examiner report video, which I recently posted, and you will be getting an idea as to how these questions are asked and how are these different. You have to link them to the case scenario, whatever the questions. See, the basic, again, substantive procedure, I have posted a video again explaining from scratch. Please watch that video to understand how can you link your substantive procedures to the case study, right? But this is a major mistake that many students do. Next thing is, of course, not reading the question carefully. This applies to not only question carefully, this does not only apply to section B, but also section A as well. There are many instances where the examiner says not in capital, most in capital, right? These sentences should be very, very kept in mind when you are reading the question. Also, there can be a scenario, again, as I discussed above, that the question is asking you about the amendment, but because you did not read the question, you were so overconfident that, okay, this is a similar type of question that I've already done, that you got confused with audit opinion and you wrote your answer as per the auditor's opinion, right? Another important mistake in reading the question is when, for example, there was a fraud, okay, in relation to provisions, okay, or in relations to your receivables, and you, because you were so overconfident, so the question says write substantive procedures for receivables fraud. Okay, now you are so overconfident, you did not read this full, you were like, okay, receivables ke bare mein pucha, I'm just writing the receivables here. They asked you about the fraud, my child. They did not ask you about the receivables. They asked you about receivables ka fraud. So you have to write about the fraud that did occur, right? So in this case, question reading is very, very, very important. Then talking about your, again, I cannot emphasize more on this. Your time management is very, very, very important. In order we can go on to write like, stories and stories, but time management is very important. Do not exceed 1.8 minutes per mark technique, and always keep the, time ticking in your heads. Um, then talking about another mistake that most of the students do is, because we want to be like exceptional in our answers, and we use jargons, very fancy looking words, fancy words we use, but these are of no use in the paper. You just have to write very simple language that it is easier for the examiner also to read and give you marks accordingly. So do not use very fancy words, very, very fancy jargons in your statements. Keep it simple, keep it plain. Then talking about another aspect, which was related to above thing only, like we discussed a few minutes back, not picking up easy marks. Easy marks is in your some of the questions, because in audit, in section B, most of the questions, your audit risk, your internal controls, your audit report, all of these topics are very, very predictable, in the sense that these questions will be coming. Of course, the case study will be different, but these questions will be coming, and you cannot skip any of these topics. I know that there are students who skip auditor's report. My child, that is a 5 marker straight question will come. It is 100% sure. Nobody can change it, right? So please grab the easy marks which are there in your paper. Then lastly, written practice is very, very, very important. Doing a lot of written practice is very important. If you're not writing it, just reading will not solve the purpose in audit. It is very important for you to do a lot of written practice. And with this, we come to an end of this video. And if I hope this video was helpful for you, let me know what all mistakes you also do in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to help you.